Hello.
Oh, hi.
I'm just staring at Meadow. I thought you were
Late to the party.
We're just on your phone.
Yeah, I was. My bad. Hello. I'm present now.
Oh my God. What a combo we just had.
I'm so in love. It's not even funny.
No, literally. You'll hear us fall in love
You'll see it too.
in this episode. Oh yeah, this is a one to watch.
We talk about synchronicities a lot on the
Mhm.
pod, but this is someone that even from the two of you's meet cute to like everything that's unfolded afterwards to finding out we're from the same hometown, grew up, raised in the same dance studio, like every single thing that we've shared with each other has just been uncanny. I think I got chills like 7 times.
No, literally me too. I knew that this was going to be a remarkable conversation, but I am in awe of the expansive directions that
Yeah.
this went in.
Yeah.
It was really amazing. So
Absolutely.
let me tell you guys before we keep boasting about how amazing she is. Today we have on the one, the only Melinda Solares.
Yeah.
Let me read to you her bio because
My God.
this woman is quite the woman. So Melinda's career at Sephora began in 2015 in the makeup merchandising department, working with some of the fastest growing brands on the market to develop their new products. She then discovered a passion for video content on Sephora's social media marketing team. And she'll talk about this a bit in her interview with us as well, where she ideated and created beauty tutorials for Sephora's YouTube channel and built Sephora's IGTV program. Soon after, she was made one of the first ever members of the hashtag Sephora Squad, which is a crew of unique, unfiltered storytellers with diverse points of view and interests. Outside of beauty, Melinda is passionate about advocating for mental health. Just wait until you hear our entire
Yeah.
conversation about mental health and spirituality. Also, make sure you're following her on Instagram because one of the most
Yes.
raw advocates out there. She is on a lifelong wellness journey that she openly speaks about to raise awareness and positively impact others along the way. And then in 2020, Melinda advanced her role as Sephora Beauty Director, where she continues to teach and inspire fearlessness in the beauty industry and community, striving to ensure that we all belong to something beautiful at Sephora. We are so grateful for the work that she does there. And we talk a lot about how valuable her specific perspective is, particularly working in the beauty industry, and how much we just like need that perspective infused into everything else. Anyway, I can't talk
No,
anymore. Meadow, keep
seriously,
going.
it's fine. I'll take it away. Our inner childs were literally screaming during this episode. Like there was so much coverage of creativity and business and emotions and how those support each other. We talked about obviously a bit about her career journey. We talked about grief and loss. She lost her mother to cancer when she was 17. And we talked about kind of like moving through that and how that moved into workaholism, which has positive and negative effects like everything else in life. We talked about like a deep depression and anxiety that sent her into such a deep spiritual awakening and how she's like moved through bringing spirituality into her mental health practices. We talked about God, everything. I don't even know how to I don't want to take anything away from this episode. I want you guys to listen to it and I want you to be set up for it. But my God, like the way that this woman just infuses all aspects of herself into what she brings and really shows up as her authentic self in every space is such a role model for us. And like, I really feel like my inner child is just absolutely screaming. I'm at a loss for words to describe this episode.
If you are somebody who is curious about the connection between career growth and mental health
Yes.
growth,
Yes.
this is an episode for you. If you're somebody who doubts
Absolutely.
the connection, this is an episode for you.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to hear your guys' feedback. We've talked about career on here, of course, and we talk about that connection, but I don't think we ever have talked about it as in depth as we did in today's episode. And I just think
Yeah.
how intertwined they are just cannot be denied any longer.
I would also say we got probably as deep in grief as we've ever gone before. So if
Yeah.
that's something that doesn't feel like what you want to explore today, we'll obviously have timestamps down below and you can bypass it. Although it might make you feel really seen because we just felt so seen this whole episode and she's just such a gift. So, but just a little warning in case it's not for you today.
Well, we'll stop talking because we clearly
Yeah.
can't.
No, we can't. There's too much to be said.
Please enjoy our conversation with our friend Melinda. Oh my God, how chic are you?
I
first of
know.
all.
What a background. Oh my God.
Oh, the fit, the hair, the makeup. It's like you work at
Everything.
Sephora. That's crazy.
Yeah. What do you know? What would you know? It's like you work in beauty.
Yeah.
It's just been a couple years, you know?
Oh my God.
No, to be
Hi.
honest, I had such like a wake up on the wrong side of the bed kind of day. And I
Mm.
Oh,
just seriously like dug my claws into my self-care ritual and just like
nice.
glamorized myself to bring myself back to life.
Oh
We'll
my
turn that
gosh.
around. We'll turn it
Yes.
around for sure. Yeah.
We're
Oh,
so
it has
grateful.
already. I'm so happy to be here.
Melinda, I'm
Oh,
so excited to talk to you. It's not even funny. Even my mother gave me, you're sitting on like a huge thing of old childhood photos. And even because I told my mom, and even my mom was like, oh my God, go look and see if your friends in your old baby dance photos. And I was like, no, she's Susan's age. Like, I don't think we're in the same photo. Like, I did
No,
Surrey with the fringe
Susan's
on
older
top.
than I am.
So are you,
I'm
you're one dance level above me, I think? Because I don't think we weren't in the same routine.
I have no idea, but I so like Christine Miyagi, Jessica Saunders, like that was my little dance
Yeah.
crew. And then Susan, I think, was maybe a year older
Older.
um than we were. But oh my gosh, just the amount of synchronicities between
The
Meadow,
three of
Gabby,
us.
myself leading up to this, I was like, can I just tell you also I manifested this? Like I this is my first podcast.
what?
And yes, this is my
How?
first podcast.
No, literally, how?
I have been
Wow.
wanting to do it for so long, and it hasn't been something that was like formally part of the role. And so
Sure.
I kind of made it part of my role. And when Gabby walked up to me after I spoke at the Rare Beauty Mental Health Summit, and she was like, oh, I'm also Cuban. I love what you said. Like, we have this podcast. And she's like, Meadows, a mental health coach. I was beauty editor. I'm just like, how is this real life?
Yeah. No, it
Oh my
was, I
gosh.
remember sitting at that panel and hearing you talk. And the entire time, my jaw was like to the ground because I was like, I cannot believe that I'm in the same space with this woman that I have the opportunity to then go up to her. I was like, I have to. I was also like,
You were
first time
texting
going to
me.
an event, first time going to an event like without a +1. So I was already
Mhm.
like nervous.
Good
And
for
then
you.
like going up to you, oh, they didn't let me. I tried to bring Meadow. They
Yeah.
were like, sorry, you can't have
Yeah.
+1s. I was like, great.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I tried very hard. But yeah, I remember being like, you have to go up to her. Like, you have got to go up to her because I just felt this immediate connection with you. And then when you were so open and excited about the podcast and just like connecting and talking in general, I was like, she's someone that like
No,
we're
Gabby
gonna know
left
each
and
other.
called me on the phone and was like, you're not going to believe who I met. Like, she's Cuban, but from San Diego, and she's both of us, and she's so fucking cool. And like, wait till you
Yeah.
see. And then I like opened my phone, and you and I are like blowing each other up on Instagram within an hour. I was like, oh, she's our people. Like, she's our
Yeah.
people. It's so clear.
Yep, absolutely. Like, I feel very strongly that was your intuition at work, Gabby. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful you walked up to me. Like, the second you did too, like, I looked you in the eyes and I was just like, this, you almost felt familiar to me. Like, it was
Yeah.
instant
Whoa.
comfort. I'm just over the moon to be here. So, thank you for
Ah,
having me.
Of
we're
course. Thank you for
so
taking the
happy to
time.
have you. Let's jump
Yeah,
in, baby. Okay, so I feel
let's
like
do
you're going
it.
to know, you know the drill because I know you've been listening a little bit, but we start
Yeah.
by asking every guest, what are you unpacking? Take it any way you want, baby.
All right. So, I am unpacking prim and proper. I'm unpacking etiquette. So the other
Ooh.
day I was thinking about this. Actually, Glennon Doyle spoke about this on her podcast, the difference between etiquette and politeness, and how etiquette is really it's really in service to you to
Mhm.
make yourself look or appear a certain way, right? Whereas politeness is about the other. It's not about the self, it's
Mm.
about the other. And both are really ingrained into our society, especially for women, I think. And I've had a lot of angst around being female as of late. And so this prim and proper kind of feeling is what I'm just like trying to smash through. Like I literally went to a
Yeah.
smash house. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those to
No, but
like
I've
I've
just been
always wanted
talking about
to.
this. Yes, tell us.
I so recommend it. The two of you would have so much fun.
Field trip.
I literally went by myself the first time. Like that's how badly I needed to get this out. And then the second time I went with my friend Marissa and it was so fun. They literally just give you like a box of like old plates from like Goodwill or whatever it is and then a bat and like a crowbar and you're like in a full like suit. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And you go in there and then they just like leave you in the room and I was standing there in silence. And I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I channel this,
Yeah.
the opposite of prim and proper? Like, let the anger out, let the real out. And I literally connected my Bluetooth and just put on like the hardest metal that I knew.
Yes. Hell
I love
yeah.
this.
And just lost it, and it was so healing. But I'm still sifting through that. I'm a people pleaser in recovery, so yes,
Mm.
this whole idea of prim and proper and etiquette, I'm trying to let go.
That like
Oh,
divine feminine rage is so real.
mhm.
Right, exactly.
It's also such an interesting balance between now I feel like we're having this awakening of women, including myself, like realizing that moving into our divine feminine is not tapping into that like prim and proper mentality and like the
Yes.
female stereotypes. So
Yes.
it must be so interesting for you moving through that and like deciphering what is your divine feminine and what is things that society have placed on you that you need to be doing and like archetypes that society has placed on
Totally.
us to be women.
Exactly. I've been thinking a lot about specifically our generation.
Mhm.
We're about the same age, the
Mhm.
the mid to younger millennials. I really feel like we were one of the first generations to, maybe because of social media, to see how being feminine can be so much different than what society pushed on us, because we started to see so much more of the world as social media opened that up for us.
Yeah.
But we were the ones that were raised without it and then
Mhm.
gained it, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So we have that kind of polarizing experience that I think makes it a lot more twisted and backwards in our heads to untangle. Because,
Oh.
Totally.
like, it's ingrained, and then you become like, you get into your 20s or 30s, and all of a sudden it's cool and it's progressive and it's seen as successful to become your divine feminine, right?
Mhm.
But like, our entire conditioning
Mhm.
was the opposite. So
Mhm.
I have a lot of hope for Gen Z.
God, so do I.
So do
Melinda, did
I.
you did
God
you
bless
do
them.
cotillion down here? They took me to the Rancho Santa Fe cotillion when I was
I
younger, and
was
so
this close, this
yeah.
close.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My older sister did it, and my mom, I remember her talking about it, and yeah, how was that experience for you?
All I remember is that the boys wouldn't hold my hands when you danced. Like, you're supposed to, like, learn different dancing and how to eat and whatever, the whole 9, and they were like this one kid would, like, keep pulling his hand back, and I remember being, like, 6 and being like, "Grow up and hold my hand. I just wanna get this over with. Like, please."
I
But yeah,
always
I
wanted to do
just
cotillion. I was
did
like
you
jealous
would.
of
You
yeah,
would.
I mean, now
Yeah.
in retrospect, I'm really thankful that my mom did not put me in cotillion. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I already grew up in like a Cuban household where like I knew how to set a table properly since like the
Right.
moment I came out the womb. But my mom was like very not into it and I'm glad she did do it. And no hate on people who've done it, but I was always jealous of my friends that did it because they would like go and wear like little tiaras and like have their little dresses. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. But I never did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a very complex experience, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
then that's like ingrained in you. And
Mhm.
gosh, yeah,
Totally.
I had the type of, less so from my Cuban side, actually, more so from
Mm.
my mom's side. My mom's side came from a very kind of like socialite, prim and
Right.
proper,
Mm.
everything's perfect. Like, I couldn't leave the dining table without saying excuse me. And I remember being like a little girl and like stubborn, sitting there like crying, and my grandma wouldn't let me leave. And I was just like, no, I'm not saying excuse me.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Wow.
My family was so similar. It was like you have to bring 3 things to the dinner table of like something you learned that day or like something to talk about or whatever. But then at the same time, my mom like refused to sign any dress code I ever had growing up in school. So it was very confusing mixed messaging.
That's so
Oh,
interesting. Like I'm just thinking about a memory of I mean, I'm really grateful for this experience, but it is interesting when you like don't give kids the autonomy to decide things. Like I'm thinking about Sundays at my house. We didn't really go to church or anything growing up, but my mom very clearly was like, you guys can't go anywhere on Sundays. Like Sunday is family day. Like we're hanging out here, we're gonna cook, we'll have a barbecue, like whatever it is, but like you guys are hanging out at the house. And we would always have Sunday afternoon, like big lunches, just like with our family. And that was so amazing and a tradition that like I really want to pass down into my future kids. But it was the same thing because it was like we could not like my mom, my sister and I would be screaming at each other from across the table. And my stepdad, bless him, would just like be like tuned out. But we still couldn't leave the table. It was like we would have everyone and then it would like we'd all fight and then like go upstairs and then we're like, okay, but I guess that was like kind of a human experience. It's like the give and take in both of
Yes.
it. You know what I mean? It was interesting.
Totally.
The parents were trying.
They were
They were
trying.
for sure
They
trying.
were trying.
The parents
They
are
were trying.
absolutely trying. But I did
That is
see,
something.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh my God.
No.
2 people, recovering people pleasers. Melinda, please,
I
after
love it.
you.
What if I just kept going back and
We
forth?
just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. No, you go. No, please. We send each other thank you
But
notes.
then I just start talking. Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, respect. No, I was going to say, one of the things I have 4 nephews, and one of the things that I really recognize with how people are raising a lot, at least my siblings, a lot of people that I know that are raising their kids these days, there's a lot less of like shutting down your kid,
Mhm.
or telling them that they're wrong, or telling them that they like have to be somewhere. I think there's a little bit more permission.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really interesting to me, because then you start thinking about how that affects our intuition, like especially as children and as you grow. It's like if you're constantly being told, like your parents are, fighting in the other room, and you're sitting at the dinner table and they're like, no, you have to stay there. And they're like, you're fine, talk to it skews your own perception of your reality and trust in yourself. And so I really loved how I've been seeing people kind of ease into it a
Oh,
bit
yeah.
more.
I think I've told this
100%.
story on the podcast before, but my boyfriend's cousin is raising a daughter right now, and she is the cutest thing on planet Earth. And I think she's like around 5. And the first time I met her, we were at his grandparents' house, and this is the Latino side of his family, which is also something to note because I grew up very much like give them a hug, give them a kiss, like the whole thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Oh
she
man.
was in a
Yeah.
room saying hi to all of us. Yeah. And one of his cousins was like, "Oh, like can I have a hug?" And she just looked at him and goes, "No, thank you." And like walked away. And I looked at his cousin and
Amazing.
I was like, "Do you want to raise me? Like what
Literally.
is it
Yeah.
was and she just like she has no beef with him. Like they get along perfectly fine, her and this older cousin, but like she just wasn't in the mood to give a hug
Yeah.
and she was like, "No, thank you."
No, thanks.
And
Yeah.
his cousin was like, "Yeah, we're really trying to teach her like if you want to, if you feel inclined to, like okay, do it, but like if you don't, like that's okay. It's your body." Like it's incredible. But speaking of intuition, because I remember one of the things I said to Meadow after I heard you speak for the first time at the summit, I was like, she is just so grounded in her
Yes.
authenticity and intuition. Everything that was
Yeah.
coming out of your mouth sounded like it was just being downloaded through you. Like you spoke with such intention and clarity. And you were also speaking to things that I was really, really working on that I hadn't heard, I guess, verbalized in the way that you did at that time. So it was like perfect synchronicities. And what you were talking about was specifically about detachment, which I'm like a big detachment person and like learning to lean into that
Mhm.
detachment. And you said something that stuck with me and I have it written down here because I was like, I can't forget this. And I
Oh
wrote
my
it
God, I love
down. I
you.
wrote it down the moment you said it. I was like, okay. You said, you said giving up control is part of leveling up. If everything's mapped out, there's no space for growth. But when nothing's guaranteed, everything is possible. And that is a sentiment that I don't always hear coming from people on the business side of things. I think that's something that we
Yes.
hear a lot being talked about from an advocate's perspective or, the wellness healer or thought leader in that sort of category. I mean, you've been at Sephora for 8 years now. You've worked across 3 different departments. And I would really love to hear how that sort of detachment mindset has played a role specifically in your career trajectory. Because I don't think we always connect the two.
We absolutely don't.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you brought that up. And I love that you brought up like the business side of it
Mm-hmm.
too, because that's so part of my journey being at Sephora for 8 years. I started in our makeup buying department. And so it was very business, it was very analytical. We're one of 2 teams that actually work directly with all of the brands that Sephora carries. So it was like become a professional like that. I was
Mm-hmm.
having meetings with Anastasia at,
Oh my
as entry level.
gosh.
But it was like move quickly,
Yeah.
like put
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
on the face. After realizing that was a little bit out of my wheelhouse, I loved it there. And I don't regret starting there at all. It was the perfect place to start because I got to see how the business works. But
Mhm.
I wanted to move into something more creative. And I was obsessed with video content and YouTube and all of that. And so I moved to our social media team when I heard that they were opening a studio in Los Angeles, but there was literally no one there. They opened the studio. There was like fold up tables and like a corner of product and like one manager running the studio. And I went to my SVP at the time in San Francisco and I was like, how can I become a part of this? And they totally went on a whim and created a contractor role for me. I mean, when I started at the studio, I was going in workout clothes, just like organizing, inventorying products. I was an art PA. I did everything under the sun at that studio. And then I got to the point where I was jumping on camera here and there when models wouldn't show up or whatever was happening. And I started to love it. And during the pandemic, we didn't have anyone to shoot with because we couldn't bring them into the studio, basically. So we set up three different in-home studios, one at my house and then two at two of our other beauty directors at the time. And I just remember talking to my then boss, and she was like, how are you liking being on camera? And I was like, oh, I love it, but I just don't think I could leave this role behind the camera. I love coaching people on camera. I love
Mhm.
pulling out their authenticity. Like
Mhm.
that human interaction is what I live for. But I was like, if a beauty director role ever opens up, literally a week and a half later, Jeffrey, our old beauty director, gave his notice. And then I joined the beauty director team during the pandemic. And that is the first time that I actually called myself a creative.
Wow.
It took,
Yeah.
yeah, it took like 5.5, 6 years. And I just wouldn't give myself permission.
Mhm.
Mm.
I think that control, that
Mhm.
detachment, and that control that you're talking about, I had this perception of who I was supposed to be. I was going to be the CMO of Sephora. Like that was my goal. And I was on my way. And who knows what I'll do next. But I think that detachment and letting go of control all started right there. And it's what has actually allowed me to heal myself.
Mhm.
Like the beauty director role has allowed me to heal myself. So it's been really beautiful.
God, that is so
I mean,
beautiful.
I just feel so seen by what you said.
Absolutely.
I mean, me letting go of my own perception of what I needed to become because I had this idea when I was 12 years old that I was going to be the next Anna Wintour. And then when I got to Condé Nast, I looked my boss in the face when I was interviewing and she was like, "What's your dream job?" And I was like, "To sit in your chair. Like, that's what I want."
Mhm.
And then for me to leave that
Mhm.
role,
Mhm.
and leave that company. And again, we don't know what's in store for me, but I really, really, really identify with what
Yeah.
you're saying. And I'm just so grateful that you're so open because for so many women in business, like, I mean,
Yes.
man, like closed mouths don't get fed, but we're also
Mhm.
not taught to speak up because why would
Mhm.
people
Nope.
teach us to speak up? Because then they can hoard more for themselves. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Mhm.
so grateful that
Yeah.
you're opening the door for this conversation, particularly just in your industry, because also, and then I'll shut up about this, like there's always such a
No.
separation of corporate and creative. And why can't the two
Yes.
Yes.
live together? Like it doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
Oh, now you're speaking my
Yes.
language.
Yeah. Well, that creative piece really speaks to me too, Gabby, because Gabby and I just did an episode unpacking inner child work. So maybe I'm projecting, but I
I
feel
listened.
like, oh,
Oh,
you know,
thanks.
but I feel like my fellow Hammonds girl is going to relate. Like growing up as a dancer and then leaving dance,
Mm,
one is always a part of your identity forever. But
yeah.
then two, ever since leaving that, like I felt so lost in my creativity. And I kept saying, like, I'm an artist without a medium. Like that
Yeah.
line from
Yes.
Vicky Cristina Barcelona when she's like, I have so many emotions and so many feelings and no artistic talents to imbue them into. And it's sad and tragic. I was like, that's me. Like I felt like I had lost that, even though I loved YouTube, I loved clothes, I loved
Hmm.
drawing. Like I loved all these things, but I wasn't talented enough at one to kind of channel it in.
Yeah.
So it's so similar, like this work towards your authentic self, this work towards your self-worth, the work towards the divine feminine also helps us marry the two, like bringing the creative into business because frankly, business is emotional as fuck. And people
Yes.
Yeah.
don't want to talk about it and it's all emotional.
Yeah. It truly is. And we have so much masculine energy. And I know
Yes.
you both get it. It's not gender. It's
No.
literally the energy and
Hmm.
what it's like we have so much masculine energy in business. It's all do, move forward, execute. And I think we lose view of the bigger picture of
Yeah.
our intention and working behind the camera for so many years with some of our biggest talent, celebrities, brand founders, like seeing the best of the best in front of the camera and trying to pull out their authenticity and rawness. Some of them, of course, were incredible, but you come across so many people who are still so guarded,
Yeah.
that they can't open up, they can't, and that's, that's their journey. But
Right.
at a certain point, I was like, what am I doing? I am like innately an open book. Like,
Yes.
I don't know why I'm like this, but I am like, I want to get up there and I want to share all of my ideas and all of my thoughts and all of my creativity related back to business and show that you can be both. You don't have to be one or the other. I recently got invited to speak at Harvard,
Yes, she
and I'm
did.
over the moon because usually they don't invite people like me, more of a creative role. Usually they're inviting the CEOs
Right.
or the founder.
Right.
And going as a creative and a mental health advocate, I just feel like these are the steps I'm trying to take forward,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
How has this like ability to grow into your authenticity, especially like alongside coaching people to do it on camera too, is so interesting. How has that informed making really conscious decisions for yourself in other aspects?
Mm.
Because I know you just shared recently that you stopped taking medication. And I got
Yes.
a anxiety medication as I grew into my spirituality practice as well. So I'm like so curious how that's affected you in like all other aspects of your life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the medication part, I feel like, it's so personal to
Yes.
everyone.
Yeah.
It served its purpose for me, and I'm so happy
Mhm.
to,
I don't regret mine
um
at all either. Like no knocking meds in any capacity. Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yes, like, I so many family members I have that mental health just like surrounds me. So many family
Yeah.
members I have who are on medication, and it's been life changing for them. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
just want to say that. But
Absolutely.
what was the first part of your question? I'm so sorry.
Just kind of like how growing into your authenticity has bled into making really conscious decisions in all areas of your life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes. I really think that it's about presence.
God.
Like my
Mhm.
ability working with people
I'm in
behind the
love with you.
camera.
I'm like, it is all about presence. I literally have a tattoo that says here to remind me to be here now. Like everything you
I
say,
love
I'm
that.
Obsessed in love with you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please keep going.
No, I'm definitely
You've
going to
given
be
me chills
stalking
like
you
4
both.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's all about presence. Like, I don't think that
Yeah.
I realized that's what it was at first. Because when I started coaching people behind the camera, I had not started my like self-love journey,
Mm.
if you will.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is the interaction and the intention behind what we were doing innately made it so present between me and that individual, and being able to connect in that way with them so that they can really tune in and find what it is that they want to share that's authentic about themselves, then
Mm.
translated to me realizing how important presence is for me when I'm on camera.
Mm.
So when I started as a beauty director role during the pandemic, like taking PR interviews for my first time through Zoom and all of this stuff, I meditated before every single one.
Hell yes.
Wow.
So cool.
I meditated before the Rare Beauty Summit. Like,
Yeah.
I have to come back to myself. Meditated before this. I've meditated twice today.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
And that doesn't mean, like an hour. It can
No.
be like literally 5-minute check-in. But
Yeah.
yeah, presence is really what got me there.
Mm.
God, I
It's the
couldn't
only
agree
way.
more. It's the only way. And it's like every spirituality concept or practice or leader or whatever, every book, it is the underlying through message of everything. That
Oh,
like
yeah.
time doesn't
Yeah.
exist, memory is fickle, like the past and all these thoughts that we obsess over are all just made up in our mind, and all we have is the present moment. And when you like really take that, everything else is easier.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When I am listening to your talk right now, it's so hard for me to not think about just like the future of not just women in business, but anyone in
Yeah.
business that is actually doing the work and is opening themselves up to healing because they go in tandem so much. And, I grew up around a lot of people who are just they're just like intense intellectuals. And while some members of my family are really down to like get into the mental health journey and like learn about their healing, I'm surrounded by some that just like aren't. And sometimes people just feel
Yeah.
like it's a waste of time because why not like level up in my career instead and then sort of create this whole life for myself, whether it's financially or success wise, and then I'll deal with that stuff. But what
Mhm.
we forget is that like
Mhm.
they work in tandem. And when I hear you talk particularly about infusing that creative and corporate side, infusing the masculine and feminine energy in the workplace, that is success. Like that is what's going to level people up and have them quantum leap so much faster. And I really want to take a second to zoom in really quickly on your mental health journey, because today, by chance, is my 5-year anniversary of doing the Hoffman process, which everyone take a
Yay!
shot on the podcast because I
Cheers
talk
to
about
that,
Hoffman all
baby.
the time.
Yeah.
And Hoffman was really my aha moment. It was the time in my life where I left being able to hear myself so clearly. I felt like I was introduced to myself for the first time at 22 years old. And I would love to hear about if you had an aha moment that you were like, this is the time that I'm going to start that healing journey.
Oh man. Okay, so yes. And I actually haven't really shared this very publicly
Ooh.
before. Actually, just in the last 2 weeks, I told my friends at Sephora and some of my team about this, and I was a little nervous to share it, but I received such positive and supportive feedback. And so
Good.
I had an entire awakening. It's like such a cheesy term or stigmatized term, rather, but I had a full awakening and my depression had gotten so bad. It was truly at the point where, during the pandemic, where my partner and I were considering inpatient options. I just
Mhm.
was lost. I was
Mhm.
having these hysterical moments where I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like safe in my body. And my partner was just, helpless.
Mhm.
Something kind of popped into my mind when I had like a really bad one day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to see a clairvoyant. I'm going to go see someone and just see what happens, After my mom passed away from cancer when I was 17, my older sister, Renee, she actually started a new job, and her boss at that job took her to a clairvoyant reading.
Mm.
And in that, the reader was able to connect to my mom, like said my sister's name. Like it was very validating. And about, this fast forward about 8 years, I'm starting to think, okay, like I'm completely lost. Renee experienced this. Like, why not? Like, hands
Mhm.
up, I don't know. And I
Mhm.
went and I started to ask her questions about moving to Nashville because I live part time in Nashville and that was happening at the moment, and my career and my partnership and all this stuff. And she stops me from talking about like 3 minutes in only. And she says, I got to tell you, I can see that you're going to be reading people just like I am a year from now. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time or anything because I hadn't explored that world. She said a few other validating things, but I hung up the phone and, still all very new to me. I called my sister Renee, who had seen the clairvoyant years back. And Renee has a friend named Alex who runs this clairvoyant school in San Diego, actually. And she's been a clairvoyant
We're going to talk
for,
about that later.
yeah, she's been a clairvoyant for about 15 years, maybe more. Her school is called Third Eye Psychic School. She has been a family friend forever. So just a little context. So I call my sister Renee and start to tell her what had just happened. Like, what the hell? And she stops me from talking and she says, I spoke with Alex, the teacher at the
Mhm.
clairvoyant school, and
Mhm.
her friend 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about you. And she said, you are going to find out that you will be reading people, and that when you do, to call her because she can help. So
Oh my God, I
that
just got chills.
happens.
Yeah, me too.
I
Yeah.
started crying at this point, and like still I was
Yeah.
so lost. Like I didn't even really know what a clairvoyant was or what any of that
Right.
meant. I was very, new. For the last, I guess, about year and a half now, I've taken two foundational courses and I am now being certified in clairvoyance. Um,
S-
and it's something that I'm hoping to be able to really leverage with the work that I do. It's becoming such an asset, I think, to everyone post pandemic kind of waking up and kind of exploring different things. And so that was a huge part of my awakening. Once I started to do the work, I actually went to a retreat in Portugal by myself
Wow.
right after the pandemic ends. I mean, like, this was
Wow.
like challenging myself to the max. Like, I went by
Yeah.
myself to meet 22 people from all over the world. I had never interacted with clairvoyance or anything like that before. And it just started to all unravel from there. But since I've been doing this work, and it's so self-healing work, like I just feel like my mental health has excelled. And
Mhm.
Absolutely.
so that's kind of been my story up until now. And I'm like 7 weeks out from officially being certified, and I'm just
Ah!
hyped.
Oh my god, that is
I
so exciting. Meadow, take it away. I
It's
know you have things
so
to say.
no, it's just so fucking beautiful, and again, like,
Mhm.
I just continue to feel so seen, and, like, you
Yeah.
are our soul sister, like, also losing my dad at 17, that experience was I like, looking back, I don't know if I fully recognized it in real time because we were children,
Yeah.
but looking back, like, that absolutely was the experience. I
Mm.
always call it choosing the or, the first time I ever had to do that, and, like, really bringing spirituality into mental health in a way that traditional psychology does not acknowledge and is so deeply lacking. Like, you don't have to label
Mhm.
it one thing. You could call it God, you could call it the universe. Like, it doesn't have to be non-denominational, but like bringing this element of like spirit into our healing or like a bigger purpose
Mhm.
is so fucking healing in a way that I think people are still so resistant towards. But I just traditional therapy lacks so much like acknowledgement of the existentialism that we all have. So like dealing with grief, it just like I feel so seen by you. I can't even
Well, I
wrap my head
remembered
into a thought.
actually that I heard you talking about EMDR. And EMDR
Mhm.
is
Yes,
something that
yeah.
I've done a ton with my
Cool. Of
therapist for
course you
the last,
have.
I
Yeah.
know, like I'm
Of
telling
course you
you,
have.
the synchronicities just keep going. So my
You're our long
therapist,
lost sister. You're the 3rd co-host. Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
over.
look, if anyone ever calls out sick, just call me up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So my experience doing EMDR
Yeah.
feels so much like meditative intuition work. It feels so much like
Yes.
getting quote unquote downloads.
Yes.
Like I was sitting there and so my therapist uses the buzzing machine. You know, for
Cool.
those of who don't know, the EMDR, it's like a tapping back and forth. So she uses a little buzzer that like taps back and forth in your hands. And I was like, this could be used to help people like tap into their intuition. Like it's truly the
Yeah.
same thing. So
Absolutely.
I so hear what you're saying. Like I so think
Yeah.
that it is the same. I just think that a lot of things are stigmatized, whether it's mental
Mhm.
health
Yeah.
or whatever aspect of it, that people get a little bit, oh, that's woo woo, and it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
always.
Did you have all these tools when you were moving through the grief with your mom, or like what helped you move through that at that time?
Oh gosh. Okay. So when my mom passed away, I was 17. And
Mhm.
the most wild thing happened when I was, I think maybe 16, if I'm not mistaken. I found out that I have another sister that I never knew about. She is
Yeah.
my father's long lost child from Miami. Um, and she reached out to me on Facebook, same last name and everything. It was that total like movie moment, like, I think I'm your
Yeah.
sister. And I was like, what? And she was living in London at the time. She had her own fashion events company. She was
Ooh,
Stella McCartney, Armani, like I was
cool.
going to fit them. So fashion was my everything.
Wow.
And
Cool.
I have three older siblings that I grew up with who have the same mom that had passed away. And I think we were getting towards the end of like emptying the house and everything. And they were kind of just like, Melinda, go. And my sister in London was like, come stay with me, come work with me. And I spent 3 or 4 months out there.
Wow.
I mean, I got to be a photographer for Stella McCartney because someone like messed up and they didn't show up. And my sister just handed me her camera and was like, you're our photographer. Like it was this
Hell
incredible
yeah.
experience that I'm so grateful for. But at the same time, it is what led me into putting my head down into workaholicism,
Mm,
like it's truly a blessing and a curse because
yeah.
it's like I am where I am today because of how hard I worked and how focused I was on
Mhm.
my career. But at the same time, I am where I am today because of how hard I worked and how much I focused on my career and how little I focused on my healing and grief and mourning.
Mm.
And that's what took me to about a year and a half ago or two, where I was, literally forehead to the ground on the floor of my house, helpless, crying. Like that's what grief does to you when you suppress it, when you push it and push it and push it for almost 10
Yeah.
years. So,
Yeah.
no, I didn't sift through anything
Yeah.
until I was a bit older. How about
It's
you?
like that healthy I it's like that healthy level of distraction that then, like, at what
Mhm.
point is it not healthy anymore?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so interesting. I had, like, a really, really spiritual experience of his passing. I don't know if
Wow.
I've talked about this on the podcast or not. My dad also had cancer, but he technically died by an accident. He, like, fell in our garage and had a lot of complications. I don't know who's triggered by medical stuff, so I can download it with you later.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital in the ICU for 55 days in and out of a coma. So it was like this weird thing where you had cancer. So leading up, we were like nervous, but then it was healing, but then it was better. So it was kind of like this weird level of prep and then a big accident. So it was like this weird instantaneous, yet we saw it coming. But
Yeah.
so my mom, my sister, and I were in the room as he passed. I was literally sitting on his legs, like looking at him. And I remember really not wanting to be there. Like, I told all the nurses, like, I didn't even go to the hospital for the first 2 weeks because I knew my dad was my soulmate, absolute, like,
Mm.
Oh,
love of my life soulmate. We are each other's people. And I knew he wouldn't want me to see him in, like, a bad state. So I didn't even go for the first 2 weeks, but then it lasted so long. So then I went, and I remember just, like, I didn't want to hear the death rattle. I was warned by all the hospice people how shit goes down, and I didn't want to be there for it. And if I was not there, I would be in such a monumentally different space for the worse. It's
Mm.
not even funny. It
wow.
was the most beautiful lifetime movie. Like, inhale, exhale. It's almost like he smiled exhaling. Like, it was so
Mm.
fucking beautiful. My whole chest filled with warmth and like bright light. And I saw the color yellow and I just heard a voice. It was like, I don't know if it was I just heard like, it's all good. It's all going to be okay. Like,
Mm.
it's all going to be to the point where it's like, you could, like, see the lights go out, like, you can see someone pass so clearly and feel it so clearly, and, they say, like, if you weigh your body right before and right after you weigh slightly less, like, the soul
Mhm.
has an energetic weight to it, which is so
Yeah.
cool. It maybe, like, 10 seconds pass, and my mom, sister, and I start laughing, like, literally laughing. We were
Wow.
like, "That was the most, that's a joke." Like, that was the most beautiful, joyous, like, easy, and I think that gave me so much fucking peace that I just
Wow.
really didn't see coming, that everything else, like, I gave myself permission to grieve. I went to therapy right away afterwards, like, so I was doing all the different things, but it almost I don't know, it's almost like that experience, like, really let me release so much in that,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
that carried me through everything else. Like, it's so clear to me that he's okay, and he's still
Yeah.
with me all the time that, like, it feels like he's on a business trip and I just has the wrong phone plan, and I just can't talk
Mm.
to him right now. Like, it's just so clear that he's all around me. I never really feel alone. Of course, I have moments, and I'll always have breakdowns or, like, I'm engaged, so I think about, like, I never wanted a wedding before, and I really don't want one now because 'cause I'm not walking down an aisle without him, like, that kind of
Oh,
thing, where
yeah.
you get wrapped up in those moments, but I don't know, it's just, like, that experience let me ride through it, really.
And
Mm.
isn't it so interesting how that almost feels intentional for your journey? Like, although, like,
Yes.
my experience with my mom was probably the opposite. I was there when she passed. I was holding her hand, and I did feel her go, but it wasn't a release. And the biggest mistake
Yeah.
and one of my biggest traumas to this day is after we all left and they
Mhm.
came to take her body away, they asked if
Mhm.
anyone wanted to see her again. And all of my siblings were like, "No, we're good." I don't
I
know
know,
why. I
I know.
don't know why I did
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
that weight stayed with me for so long
Mm.
because
totally.
she was in the bag. Like,
Yeah,
it's so messed up
yeah.
to even say, but that
No,
weight
I
stayed with
left the
me.
room and had to say, "Don't look." Like, "Don't
Yes,
look one more time, don't look one more," like, I it feels like yesterday. I know saying that to myself.
Mm.
I feel you so deeply
but that
because the body
experience,
changes immediately too.
yes. And that
Yeah,
experience,
people
I
don't
think,
warn you
seeing her like that and that weighing on me, I think is actually what led me to make sure she was okay
to
and
deal
to
with it.
start
Yeah,
exploring those things. Like, it took me a while
yeah,
to get there, but my journey got me here in my career, and then I
totally.
was able to, like, untap that. Like, everything started with my mom, in this.
Has the
So,
has the clairvoyancy brought you closer to her, do you feel? Like, do you feel more connected with her since starting that work?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That is
actually,
so fucking cool.
Yeah, what's really cool too is, it's like they can almost be like a guide.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah, so
Totally.
it's been amazing. It's definitely, everything happens for a reason, but
Yeah.
I feel yeah.
I've soul sisters.
Grief, I mean, yeah,
Soul
seriously.
sisters.
First of all, thank you both for sharing those deeply personal stories. I know, Meadows shared on this podcast, but you've never told that story. And like just the way that thank you both for your generosity, honestly, because like those are such personal experiences that like we don't need to know. And so the fact that
Yeah.
like you're choosing to give that gift to us and everybody listening, like I'm exponentially grateful for the two of you.
I love
Grief is
you.
I love you
Love
too.
you.
Grief is, I mean, it's such a personal experience and I feel like nobody can be properly set up for it, particularly when like life is just so fickle. Like,
Yeah.
Meta, when you were talking about like, you guys were mentally prepared-ish because of your dad's diagnosis,
Right.
but then that's not how
How
he
he
ended
went.
up passing.
Yeah.
Meta knows the story of my grandmother and like that
Yeah.
I've never shared on here, and not to be like, oh, let's all share our moments of grief.
Oh,
But
but if you want to, please, because it is so impactful for your healing as well.
well, it's just a complete testament of like how fickle life is. And like, I always laugh at
Yeah.
like my first tattoo because it's so much thicker than the rest of my tattoos. And I'm like, yeah, tell me you got a first tattoo. But like even, I still love her and I will always keep her on my body because I got it on the anniversary of my grandma's death when I was like 20 when I got this tattoo. I'm curious also to hear, side note, before I tell the story, more about like how you said they can almost act as guides, because I think that that's also something that like I'm really trying to tap into that clairvoyant side of myself.
Mhm.
And it's something that
Mhm.
everybody has the capacity to do. I think that's a big
Yes.
misunderstanding.
Well, it's
100%.
also like we said
Mhm.
earlier about children, like when you keep telling children, no, that's not socially acceptable. No, like we
Right.
teach our abilities out of our children. Please keep going. I
That's
No,
will
what I
cut you
was
off.
100%.
alluding to.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wonder, but also it's kind of scary to
Yeah.
know that we have that capacity. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
diminish that side of it as well, because I know that like when I had moments when my grandma first passed where I 100% saw her, but I was
Yeah.
little and I was scared. And I was
Yep.
like, I'm not ready. Like I can't.
Yeah.
And I never really saw her again in that same way. And I know
Yeah.
Meadow has like a similar story with her dad where it
Mhm.
can be scary
Mhm.
to know that the veil is so thin. And I wonder how you've been able to work with that. If you've had similar experiences like that, like if you've been able to overcome that, advice for people that like want to tap into their abilities, but like don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny that you say that. Something I actually kind of left out of my story that usually when I tell my friends that little, like how it all started, I usually mention when I was speaking to that clairvoyant who told me, she was like, your gift is going to be your ears. And
Mm,
again, I didn't really
Mm.
understand what that meant at the time. However, I got full body chills because my entire life growing up, I have covered my ears in bed and I've never understood why.
wait, so do I. I can't sleep without the cover over my ears.
I
Yeah.
sleep with a
I get
pillow on
scared.
I
Like
sleep
it
with a
freaks me
pillow over
out.
my ears. Yeah.
Yep.
I get scared. And
Yeah.
when I was little, it's how I would like protect myself at night.
Yep, and
Yeah.
I've done it as an adult, like, especially in, like, really energetically charged places, like, my
Yes.
grandma's house was built in 1902 in Pennsylvania, and I frequented it every year. Every time I went there, I would wake up in the middle of the night around, like, 3 a.m., sweating, and, like, cover my ears, and I
Mhm.
Yeah.
still, um, did it up until she passed a few years ago. I was there, and I was still doing it, and it was just, like, so validating to hear the woman say that because I was like, "Oh." So,
Oh my God,
yes,
I've never thought
absolutely.
about why I do
Wow.
that. I've
Yeah,
never thought about why I do that.
she's like, "It probably scared the hell out of you as a child and
Yeah.
or someone told you that you're imagining things."
I'm not gonna lie, I went through a phase with these headphones so intensely that I thought I'm probably just on the spectrum because 'cause I'm just so sensitive and I like to be in my own little
I
thing,
can't travel with
you know?
without soundproof
Big
headphones.
guys. Yeah, same,
I w
Mhm.
same.
I keep them on the entire time. It's, like,
Yeah,
too much.
We all
yeah.
have, yeah, everyone has. My boyfriend has that with like his hoodie and like he has a beanie that he always like he'll
Emotional
like
support
nap
hoodie.
in the
Yeah,
beanie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But wow, I never thought about that with the ears because it was always,
Me
and I still
neither.
do it now out of habit.
Mhm.
But first, when I was little, it started of like, I felt, and like, it's not like anything ever happened to me in my sleep that like
Yeah.
would have caused trauma in this way. But it would like freak me out and I felt
Like Monster Under
scared.
the
Like,
Bed.
yes, I felt
Like,
like
I'm good.
someone
Yeah.
could like get me if my ears weren't
Yeah.
Yeah.
covered.
Very, very
Whoa.
bizarre, right? She was just like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But the fact that she said that and that was so significant to me, and it was always in like places that even before I knew about energy in the
Mhm.
space or could really comprehend that growing up, like it would always happen in those areas where I was just more heightened. Like I was like sweaty or like I woke up or those different things that happen.
Totally. Totally.
Anyways, yeah, wild that you both too.
Whoa. So do you
Wow.
do like ancestor work? Are you into shadow work? Like kind of what are you currently playing with your
Mm.
spirituality and mental health stuff right now?
Well, let's see. Shadow work for sure. Shadow work, inner child work. Like I've
Yeah,
I mean it's ongoing, so I don't want to say like I've been
for
through that
sure.
because there's no finish line.
Right.
But I would say right now what I'm working on most is validation
Mm.
Mm,
because in clairvoyant work and energy work there's so much trust that you have to have in yourself. And
yeah.
one thing I really like about the school that I'm going to is that they create really strict guidelines for reading to really
Mm,
protect the space and make sure you're doing it responsibly and you're not messing with someone's life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so we actually, as we read people, cannot ask for validation. So if I have a reading with someone and I tell them their whole story, afterwards, it's just like, okay, thank you, or do you
Yeah.
have any more
Yeah.
questions? But it's incredibly difficult and incredibly triggering to start to practice clairvoyance and not receive validation, but it's what makes you the most
Totally.
foundationally strong to do it responsibly. So that's my
Totally.
biggest work right now is validation in everything that I do. So it ties back to our people pleasing tendencies, right? It's like
Yes.
every
Yeah.
decision I
Yeah.
make, every time I say something to my partner that's like maybe bothering me, and instead of second guessing myself or thinking like, oh, was that too much? Like standing by it and being validated in how I feel. And so that's huge right now.
Just really quick, I have a people pleaser reframe that I just feel called to share with you because I think it's going to resonate because we've been talking so much about attachment and letting go. I
Yes,
used to
please.
say, I've said on this podcast before, like people pleasing was my form of control.
Yes.
Because if I got to control the way in which I presented myself to you so
Mhm.
that I knew exactly how you're going to respond to me, then
Yep.
I won't be rejected for being my authentic self. But then you're giving me the validation that's validating who I'm not anyway. So I'm still being rejected in a sense. But it was like, for me, it was so wrapped up in that control. Like anytime I find myself in small little situations, like I just tell myself, you're controlling, like you're being manipulative. And then that feeling of removing someone else's autonomy is so quick to like get me out of it and pull me out of it. Then I just say my fucking truth. Because I'm like, they get to decide
Mhm.
how they want to show up to that or not. And that's my biggest gift to them
Mhm.
is me saying my truth and letting them show up how they want to too.
Oh
And that's been like my
man.
biggest release from people pleasing. But anyway, Gabby, go. I just felt called to share that with you.
Yes. Thank you.
Now I'm just stuck on this clairvoyant
No, I
conversation
love
because,
this. Keep it going.
well, I'm just curious from the flip side, right? Because as somebody that's gotten a lot of readings, and I know that we get a lot of questions about, tarot and meeting with clairvoyance and all of these
Mhm.
things. I know that I've definitely been in a room because like I didn't know that. I didn't know that part of creating that safe space is not asking, like, did this resonate with you? Because I know that I've been in moments where that question has been asked to me with multiple different people that I've worked with. And sometimes I feel inclined to be like, yeah, I guess, when it doesn't. And I find it so
Mm.
interesting because at first, my initial reaction, and while this can totally be true, is like, they're just kind of like not tapping in right. Or like, I don't want to be like, you're not good at your job, but like, whatever the case may be. But what I've realized is that we do have so many different stories and life
Mhm.
paths that we could go on. And whatever we choose
Mhm.
is the right one because
Mhm.
that's the one that we've chosen and that's the decision that we've made. But I think sometimes, people can illuminate that story because we were just 1 inch away
Other
from
versions
taking
of
that
yourself.
step that would take us
Totally.
down that version. But instead,
Totally.
because we have free will, we've taken the other choice and now we're down this life path. So maybe what they've said doesn't really resonate. So I wonder if you have any tips for people on the other side. I don't want to use the word like consumers, but people, who are going to the
Readings.
clairvoyance
Clients, I
for,
guess.
clients that
Yeah.
are going to readings, how we can best disseminate somebody who we feel safe and aligned with, and how to also leave that reading with our free will and autonomy to continue making decisions for ourselves that we feel like are best for ourselves, and not giving that person the power of knowing what is best for us and what decisions we should be making.
I love that, Gabby.
Gosh, I don't know. I'm still such a newbie. I don't want to, sit here and pretend that I have years of experience of doing this, but I similarly have quite a bit of experience of being a readee or a client and sitting in this
Mhm.
space. And I've always kept my readers very diversified. I have like
Mm,
probably
Mm.
4 or 5, because I like to make sure that I'm not getting too consumed in one. I like to
Yeah.
mix it up and not feel, I think it's just a little
Mhm.
bit healthier. But I guess I would say, going into a reading, you really just have to set up your mindset as this is an interpretation you're receiving from a reader. Everything is going through them. So the work that I'm doing foundationally is helpful to ensure that my filters don't play a part in interpreting messages that are coming through.
mhm,
Mm.
And I think certain people in the space work differently. And so if you're feeling like someone is kind of making an opinion over what they're stating to you, or you feel like they have emotion behind what they're stating to you, I feel like those can be kind of red flags, because
mhm,
it should truly just be a very straightforward interpretation. And as long as you keep your mindset as well as, oh, this is an interpretation, this is not set in stone, right? This is just what's coming through
Mhm.
in this moment through this person at this time. I think that really helps ground you back into knowing that ultimately whatever and everything you need lies within yourself. And so
mhm,
just holding on to that too when you're in readings, it's like if you're like something doesn't resonate with you or it just doesn't sound right, trust yourself, you know?
mhm.
Like I think a lot of do you guys follow Chris Corsini?
Mm-mm.
Yes,
I
I
don't.
love
I love
Chris.
him. Yeah,
So he does a lot of tarot readings. His channel is just great. He also
he
does like
signs.
workshops and stuff. Signs.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Mhm.
love
Oh,
his.
I know who you're talking about. My cousin sends me his stuff,
Yeah,
but I don't follow him. But she has sent me
yeah.
him before because I recognized him signing while he's giving the reading. Anyway, go on.
Something I love about his readings is that he'll continuously say, like, if this doesn't sit with you well, brush it off. Like, let it
Both of
go.
us doing the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know so I guess ultimately, with all of this work, it comes from you first. And I
Mhm,
think
Mhm.
if you're not foundationally grounded and you're kind of taking too much external without focusing on your internal, that's where the imbalance happens, and it can get a little bit unhealthy or difficult
mhm.
to digest.
I so see, like, oh God, for all of us, like how this comes back to business, even because as you're talking,
Mhm.
it's wild. One, I was told I was going to be a coach in a clairvoyancy reading, and my response was literally
Really?
like, coaching soccer. Like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, I had no fucking
No
clue what that was going to
way.
mean. And 6 months later, someone approached me and asked for it, and that's what like started this whole journey. Because I was only doing consulting with brands, not like individual
Mhm.
creatives. But
So
even
you're
then, like
telling
the way
me, I'm
that you,
sorry, you're telling me that we also found out the
yeah,
purpose
uh-huh,
Yeah.
the same
yeah,
way.
yes. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
I'm like trying not to talk about myself too much, but everything you say, I'm like, I feel like this is exactly reflected in my own life. Like this
Great.
is
So we're
we
all
are the
having
same.
dinner next time we're in the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
city.
Exactly.
That's what's
Exactly.
happening.
But like even the way that you like meditate before rare, like the way that you're talking about going
Mhm.
into readings, like I do that before every single coaching call. I meditate and my goal is to like become a pure vessel for information and remove any aspect of
Mm.
my own conditioning, my own beliefs, my own thoughts. Like it's removing all my own shit so that I can really show up as an authentic mirror for someone else. And it's like
Mm.
you're doing that in every space. I watch how Gabby does
Exactly.
that moving into her own spaces.
Oh,
Like it's just
thanks.
all of this relates back to what we're trying to do in our careers as well. Like it's just so I don't know, I guess, Gabby, just like going back to people that don't see the value, like
Hmm.
they're so deeply intertwined and so supportive of each other. Even the way we say if you're burnt out, you have to take care of yourself in order to show up and like have a brain at work. This
Hmm.
is the same shit. Like in order to really like move authentically through these spaces and show up, you have to do your own shit.
Hmm.
110%. I mean, like even in the way that like you look at day-to-day things, like when somebody has road
Yes.
rage or where,
The
somebody
best
it,
example.
dude,
Number
it's
one
like
example, number one.
something that we did that I always am careful to like give away specifics about the activities that we did at Hoffman because I never
Yeah.
want to like ruin someone's experience if they choose to go. But one of them, like, but let me tell you, one of the activities that we did had a lot to do with projection and recognizing when like you're really just like they didn't, yeah, they might have been an asshole, but like that's on them and like you could be whatever. It's like everything is like sort of our projection of something and just think about the way that you would be able to move through your life with so much more ease if you just realize that like that's their shit, not
Their
yours.
Yep.
shit.
That's
Yes.
their shit. These are like
Yes.
what Meadow said of like removing your filters. Like even if if your friends are coming to you for advice and then you get these like I know we've all been there, get these like visceral reactions to
Yeah.
what their decisions are. Like
Right.
it's not about you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's their
Totally.
journey, that's their movie. You're there to
Totally.
like if, either listen or give advice if they've asked for it, but like give advice from a place that's like not burdened with like all of your shit.
Totally.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm even careful about how much advice I take from
Oh yeah.
people, whether it's they're really close to me or not, because then you're just going back to that external versus internal
Mhm.
validation. And
Mhm.
ultimately, if you fall out of balance with that, it skews everything in your life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw this TikTok recently from the founder of Spanx and she
Oh.
was saying how she didn't tell anybody in her family. I can't remember the exact timeline, but she didn't tell anybody, like friends, family, nothing about creating her business until I believe she said until it was at a place where she knew it was going to work. And it was
Mhm.
going along. I mean, she knew it was going to work as much as she could know that it was going
Could.
to work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And she said, if I would have told my friends and family when I was developing the concept, I would have never started this company because I would have gotten told that's not going to work or like, "Ooh, are you sure you don't want to tweak it this way?" or whatever. And I was just talking about this with my boyfriend about the importance of holding our ideas close to our chest and it's the same thing with asking for advice. And I go even as far to say like to urge people even to not tell their ideas or not ask for advice from external people until you've gotten to a place where it's like you really trust your own intuition
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
that's a
Mhm.
muscle and if you
Totally.
it's so easy take it from somebody who did it for the better half of their life.
Yeah.
It is so easy to just move through life on autopilot just doing what somebody else tells you to do because you're like,
Yeah.
"Nah, it's easier than making my own decision."
And
Yeah.
this is where I really thank you for that. Like this is because you just like set me up exactly for this is what I really want to do with the beauty industry. It is
Mm.
such an
Mm.
externally focused industry, right? Like
Yeah.
because you are kind of creating art with makeup or you are creating art with hair and skincare is self-care, but it's it's very externally focused, and I actually found my self-care through my skincare, that's actually kind of how my meditation started. Like, as I would apply
Yeah.
my
Mm.
skincare in between each step, I would start doing breath work while, like, the serum was seeping in, and then or whatever it might
Cool.
or steaming my face and meditating during that. Like, I was just so consumed in beauty and work that that was my way
Mm.
in, and
Totally.
I feel like the beauty industry is, like, beyond peaking. It's basically it's, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
blown up, and there's so much opportunity for us to take it and turn it internal and really focus
Mhm.
on what it is about the art of beauty that comes from inside of us versus, like, what it is we're trying to create to appease the external.
Yeah.
Just turning it back in. And I feel like there's so much opportunity for that. And everything we're talking about applies to that. And it's connected to social media too. And
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
this metaverse is that we're going to be moving into, I think it's just so important that on every facet of our life, whether it's like beauty or personal or professional, that you're foundationally strong in your internal validation, period.
Oh my God, my inner child needed someone like you so badly because
Me
I've been,
too. Thank you.
yeah, you are who your inner child needed. That's
Mm.
such a beautiful, I love that one. But I was so obsessed with skincare in high school. Like my boyfriend at the time's mom turned me on to Paula's Choice, and I like had the full, like I had the best skin of anyone in high school. I was
Oh, we love
obsessed
You
with
Paula's
still
Choice.
skincare.
do.
Oh yeah, she does.
Thank
Meadow
you.
glows.
I
Meadow
am the
Glows.
skincare
glows.
queen. I
Yeah.
literally, I can't reach it because my dog's on my lap, but I was showing Gabby before you logged on my new little parasol I got because it's 90 degrees outside and I will not be in the sun because I'm too pale and I'm protecting my skin at all times. Yeah, we need to
I
get you
use
one.
my grandma's parasols in
Do
the
you have one?
park.
But like, of course you do, right? Like, of course you do. But I've loved it for so long and I feel so similarly. Like it was such a beautiful routine. But when I was deep in my like working in nonprofits and like deep in social work, I remember like one of the many blogs I started and stopped in like 2017. I wrote like a scathing fucking article about a face mask is not self-care. Cause I was like, if I watch the beauty industry try to sell me one more fucking product and call it mental health work, I'm gonna rip my hair out. And what it made me, there was so much cognitive dissonance because I was like, it is so meditative. It's such a way to like nurture your vessel and like remember what the
Mhm.
difference between your spirit and your vessel. And like, I believed in that so much. And it was such a part of my personal experience. But the way that it was being packaged
Yeah.
was so external focused and grimy. Like, you are just someone that all of us fucking need in this
Yeah.
industry. And I'm so grateful
Oh
for what
man.
you're doing.
Yeah.
You've given me chills like 6 times today already. Melinda, like, I'm just so grateful for your presence, who you are,
Mhm.
what you're bringing to the table, how you're moving through your life. And now I'm honored to call you a friend and I can't wait to hang out with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Everything Meadow
so
said
much.
times two.
Not like we haven't already hung out and we just didn't even know. I'm still obsessed with that. Like, I gotta find an old
Oh,
Hammond's dance video so we can like watch the recital and just like scream at ourselves.
there's no doubt that both of us are in like a purple one shoulder lame matching
No,
feathered outfit.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank
All
you
our
so
little inner
much.
babies. We love you.
We love you.
Come
Thank you
back
for coming
soon.
on. Yes.
How's it going, y'all? It's Aaron. Don't let your Monday suck. Don't have those Sunday scaries. I'm tired of everybody waking up in the week saying, shit, it's Monday. You know what goes down? TMV releases every week on Mondays. Make sure you rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching YouTube, yes, TMV has a YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and ring that noti bell and never miss a thing. And also, join the TMV Familia by joining the Thoughts May Vary Patreon and by following at Thoughts May Vary Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for listening.
Great.
There you go.
Thanks, AB.
Got y'all.